right? Does somebody want to talk about the employment at will information and the 3 exceptions? Rundown of what that is, the work at will?
What do you mean the 3 exceptions?
The breach of implied contract, the breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealings, and then the violation of public policy were the 3 exceptions of the work at will. Did you read that part?
I did. I read it. I mean, I didn't retain a lot of it very well myself.
Yeah.
I have my video off today because I am sick, so I'm a train wreck. But
I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's just lovely little head cold. So I read the at will, and I know I've heard about this a lot, but it seems like it's by state. Like, I know Arizona is supposedly an at will state. But I can't say I remember a lot about the exceptions.
Okay. I wouldn't either if I hadn't taken the quiz already, and some of the questions in there were about that, so I had to kind of reread and really understand a little better to answer the questions correctly.
I even took the quiz too, and I still, yeah.
All right, well, Michael, do you remember any of it?
I don't. I'm trying to look it up right now because I didn't retain.
I'm just going to give a quick rundown. This is what they gave the leader, okay? The work at will is a federal thing, and it's only in the United States. Other countries are more at will, and it's much harder to fire people in other countries. But in the US of A, you have the choice of who you want to work for you, how long you want them to work for you. And these are the 3 exceptions, though. And of course, there are local laws, state laws, and then local laws from your area that may change the federal law, right? Because that's how it works. Mm-hmm. So, but the federal mandate and everything has 3 exceptions, and that's breach of implied contract. And that's when you have a contract with your employee that says that you'll be with them for a certain period of time. And sometimes just saying your salary for the year will be and giving a number means that you expect to employ them for a year and they expect to be employed for a year. And if you decide not to employ them for that full year, you have to give them a certain amount of notice. You have to, because you already made the implication that they would be there for a longer period of time. So that's one of the exceptions. The other exception is where your employer wants you to do something and you refuse to do it, and so you fire the employee for not doing what you want, and the employee felt like he couldn't do it for whatever reason, moral reasons. So you can't terminate an employee for not doing something that they find morally wrong. And then the last one was the violation of public policy, which is if they have jury duty or they tell on a manager for not being honest with funds or something like that, then you can't fire them for that. So it's the blow the whistle, and then you can't fire somebody for not wanting to be a boyfriend or girlfriend with you or whatever, and going to file for workman's comp. You can't just fire them because you don't want them to be able to file. So those were the 3 main exceptions. And then, of course, it reminded us of some of the other things we covered this semester already, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. Do you remember that quiz we had to do where we had to look at all these different acts and things that were getting fired for or not getting the job that they wanted? And we had to decipher what job they should have and why or if it's a suable action or not. Do you remember that one?
I do. One of the cases was when they fired that lady because she was pregnant, right? Because she couldn't lift a certain weight.
Yeah. Well, they never even hired her. They just.
Right. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what they were covering and saying that these are some of the other statutes for discrimination of employment. You can't fire them because of their age. You can't fire them because of their race, national origin, if they have a disability, their gender, their religion. So that's pretty much the dismissal that they covered for us.
You mean they can't fire
Then,
somebody if they're bald and have a bad comb over? Wasn't that
yeah,
one
or
of the
bad
things in the reading this week?
breath. Yes.
I was like,
And
why
that
is that even in there?
Oh, yeah, that was Phil, right? I think Phil was
Yeah.
kind of so good looking and had cancer, and so they all kind of huddled around him, and oh, you can fight this, buddy. He had a young daughter, and they wanted to support him, but he's not really that great of an employee, and so they wanted to think about firing him. Okay, so now going on to the financial obligation of having Terry and Phil at the company. It's the first question is, what impact does Terry and Phil, what do they have on the company's bottom line? Do either of you have a comment on that?
Well, it seems like they're a drain on the bottom line if they're just there and not really contributing to the company. The company's just wasting money on their salaries.
Yeah, yeah. Now I think Phil was doing a little, but it seems like Terry was, to try to get him to do anything correctly and to be helpful in that area.
Yeah,
Right.
both of them were their two weakest performers.
Yeah.
Both pretty poor performers.
Yeah. And I don't think it was all that noticeable in the beginning when they first were hired, because it wasn't such a dynamic group as it is now. But now it's very noticeable that they are draining the group.
Yeah.
And at the very bottom. So what kind of obligation financially do you think that the manager has to these two guys? If you were the manager, would you feel that that they should be getting the salary and benefits that they're getting right now? That they financially, what obligation do you think that they should have right now?
I think Phil would be a tougher choice just because of his scenario and his illness and just getting back on his feet. But Terry, I don't have a ton of sympathy for, because he doesn't really have an excuse to not be doing his job. So I think financially he's just a burden on the company, and sounds like he's only there just because of who he's friends with.
Yeah. Based on what we've learned about employment at will and exceptions, is there a legal obligation that the manager has to keep Terry and Phil? That he has to keep them on?
I don't think so. I mean, I think no matter where you work, you can fire someone if their performance don't meet what they're supposed to. And so I personally think that if they fired, I don't know, maybe Terry, they might be okay. Phil might be a different question though, because he might be able to come back and say that he was fired because he was sick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Terry though, at least I think they could be fine firing him.
Well, what do you think about the implied contract? Because they've been giving him favorable reviews. The old manager, Rachel, had been giving him favorable reviews and not saying anything because of his friendship with the CEO.
That's true.
Yeah, but I mean, the reviews are every 6 months, and if he has a bad one now, I mean, they don't have to keep him around for a year. They could just get rid of him, I think. I mean, everybody on the team, no one has anything good to say about him, so
Yeah.
I think they'd be covered.
Do you think that ethically the manager has any obligations to either one of them?
Phil would be the only, I don't even know if that would be an ethical call. That would just be more,
Circumstantial, I would feel like.
yeah, or a moral deal, but I don't think it would be ethical.
What about is it ethically wrong for the manager to keep him on? Is it wrong for her to keep him on knowing that they're a drain?
Ethically, I think so. Because don't they receive the same salary as other people they work with, don't they?
It doesn't say, but probably.
Yeah, I find that ethically wrong. I think that if someone doesn't perform as well as other people, they shouldn't be, reimbursed as well as others.
I
So,
agree.
in fairness, I would say ethically they should be, terminated or put on probation or something.
I agree. We had somebody at our work that everybody in the office knew they didn't do anything but sit in their office and watch TV. And he still, for months, had a job. And it brings morale down. Everybody, yeah, it's just a problem. So I agree with Michael. I think ethically they do have a obligation to get rid of them.
I agree. I mean, it says some of the notes you guys covered most of it, but it says that Terry could be dangerous, that top management wants to retain him, and that they've been giving him high scores in the past. Is it okay to terminate him out of the blue? And then Phil, they said he thinks he should get promoted. He thinks he's doing fine, and his group is rallying around him because of his illness. And would that impact the morale of the rest of the employees if all of a sudden he was let go after they've been all rooting for him?
Yeah. That one would be hard. Well, and wasn't it Terry that they were a little bit nervous because he had a gun in his car or
Yeah.
something about that? He was a little right wing politically too, or something.
Yeah, he was a little more on the edge. He could potentially be a danger. I don't know. What do you think as far as I know he gave the manager, she gave a brief history of kind of how she moved up in the company and how things were going. How well is the company in the case doing with its HR practices in general, do you think?
I think probably not well. If they're getting good reviews, when if their reviews don't reflect how well they're working, I think that's something.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Go ahead.
They have those performance, the PIP things where they just tend to put people on those, waiting for them to make a mistake just so that they can have an excuse to fire them. I don't think that's necessarily a best practice.
Yeah, the personal improvement program.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a good thing, but the manager, that she kind of made it very clear that it was really just a way of finding reasons to get rid of them and having something to take to court with you if they disagree.
Yeah. They just weren't using them in a correct manner, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then what do you think as far as their hiring practices?
Thought about that. This particular manager was picky about who she hired, but she tended to hire people exactly like her.
Yeah. Well, do you remember how when they talked about how Terry got hired, that he had to go through 5 different people and they all didn't want to hire him, and he ended up getting the job anyway? uh, you go through certain amount of managers and you get an interview, and she said if 2 or 3 say no, then it's a no. And for Terry, he ended up getting so many no's, and he still ended up getting the job.
Wow.
So as far as hiring practices, I think that's pretty good. Going through 5 different people, getting to know who you want to hire, make sure they're the right person for the job. I thought that was good. He just kind of slipped through because he knew somebody.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think about the managing people and giving them those feedback reports? The 2.5 being put on the PIP, and then getting a 3.5 being really good. Do you think that's a good idea?
You mean giving him the 2.5?
Just the whole system. What do you think about the system? The HR system.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, I understand the points on performance reviews. I I mean, we do that too, but it just seems like you should be telling people more during the time frame if you notice things wrong and not be waiting for that review. There just needs to be more communication, I feel.
I agree. Michael, what do you think about that one?
I agree. Like, I feel like 2.5 would be kind of like getting a grade and not knowing why. Like if you do poorly on an assignment, and you don't really know why. It'd be hard to improve on, I guess.
Well, they did get to rate themselves too, because it said somewhere it said Phil had rated himself as a 3.0. So there must be some type of criteria for each of those numbers, because he rated himself a 3.
Okay. So
But
2.5 was really low, right? Like they could almost fire you if you
yeah,
do 2.5s.
yeah, it's different. It's a different idea. It's like giving him an A, B, or C, a grade. I don't know what I think about it. So what do you think as far as the decision? It sounds like we believe he should fire Terry and keep Phil on because of his illness. What's the consensus?
Yeah, I think Terry needs to go. Phil, I don't know. I don't know if you give him a little bit more time and maybe tell him in his review, hey, this is where we're at. We really want to back you up. We really want to support you and help you succeed, but you got to start pulling a little bit more weight.
Yeah. Um, can you think of any alternatives to firing Terry? Can you think of anything that she could do?
Maybe a probationary period. Maybe let him know why, what they're thinking. Just let him know like his performance has been very poor. And if he doesn't improve, I don't know, maybe give him a 3-month probationary period.
That's a good idea.
In those 3 months, if you haven't improved, you're going to be fired. And then, after those 3 months, if you haven't maintained, better work or better performance, you'll be fired also. So maybe just like a probationary period.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a good one. Or if there's another place for him in the company that he would be better suited.
Yeah. Something maybe not so technological.
Yeah.
I think we already kind of talked about what the other employees are going to think, especially with Melanie's story. You know, if he doesn't get fired, they're going to think, huh, why are they letting a slacker stay on here, and feel some resentment and morale going down. And then if they do fire him, I think, you know, they'll probably be happy, most of them.
Yeah.
But they'll also be like, ooh, you know, she doesn't care what upper management thinks because we know that's why he was here. So I don't know. Did you guys happen to read part 2 already, the second half, to see what happened?
I haven't.
I glanced, but I don't remember it.
Well, if you have a second, go ahead and read it, because I thought the manager did an amazing job. She basically explained to Terry in a nice way that he doesn't really fit in anymore because of the people that are around him, and she had him admit it because she pointed out some of the skill sets of some of the other employers and or employees, and he even admitted, yeah, he's amazing, or she's really, really good. And he said, you know, she told him, can you do those things? Will you work at those things and be able to do what they do? And he admitted, no, I can't do what they do. And so she finally got him to come around, and she told him, I don't want to put you on the PIP plan. I don't think you deserve that, you know, because it's just it's a way to fire you. And I don't want you to have the embarrassment of being a part of that. But she said, I'll give you what time you need to find another job. Maybe you can find another position in the company. And so she gave him the opportunity to look around and find another place. And he ended up agreeing that he probably did need to move on because he didn't like being at the bottom of the skill set that everybody else had. And so he looked around for a job, and everybody that wanted to hire him would ask employees that worked with him, and they all gave him bad reviews. So he ended up not being able to work there. But he went on to another company, ended up becoming a manager, and it was someplace that, you know, was more over mechanical things. So he could work well with his hands, I guess, and manage people that way. So he did well, and they ended up becoming and staying friends. So
Cool.
that was good. And then Phil was a sad story. Phil ended up being gone from work for a long time, and so the manager went ahead and talked to HR and said, can we just replace him for now? And they did. They replaced him, and so when he was finally able to come back to work, he had already been replaced. So they just basically made an extra seat for him and said, you can hang on here, you know. But he was kind of left out because he had already been replaced. And so he ended up finding another position in the company that wanted him, but then he got brain cancer. And so he was unable to work after a while. It was terminal. And after he left the company, he died shortly after.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of sad. But that was how she handled it. I thought that was tremendous because
Yeah.
the way she had him admit that, yeah, he doesn't quite fit in, that it was that obvious, and what kind of people he was set up against because of the changing of the company, and that it's just so much more computer based, programming based now. And he agreed that he didn't have that skill set. So it ended up being an agreement between the two of them that he was going to have to find another place to work. And she was very understanding of, I'll give you the time that you need to find a place. And within 3 months, he was out. So,
Wow. Impressive.
yeah. Yeah, I thought it was. So if you want to read it, it's pretty good. Okay, so I'm trying to just finish it up because I got other homework to do. What can we learn about decisions about termination from this case study?
I like how they, you know, I think it's important to let the employee understand why, and how you were saying how they, they even had him saying that he couldn't compete with his, coworkers, and that he probably wasn't a good fit, to have him say that, himself was a really, really good. And they talked about doing that, like just make sure that they're understanding. And he obviously understood why he was being let go. So I think that's a big one, just letting them know why and make sure they understand. And if you can even get them to agree with you, that's even better.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. It seems like you're doing them a disservice if you don't tell them why for future jobs they may have. I mean, they're never going to learn from it if you don't tell them.
Yeah. I think from this case, I learned how hard it is to be in a management position where you've got your CEO and other managers telling you, hey, this is a great guy. We don't want him to go anywhere, and having to stand up for what you think is right for the group. And it takes a lot of courage. And it's not an easy thing. And keeping in consideration that they have families and, especially Phil being sick, that just is heart-wrenching for me. I just want to throw a bunch of money at him. Tell him I'm so sorry you're going through this. Yeah, it's a tough position. I hope, termination, I hope isn't ever going to happen with my job. There's so few bus drivers. We need them all. We're never going to terminate, really. Unless they're just really bad people. So as far as, I think we already talked about how we can apply some of the learning that we've learned from this. Okay, so are we good? You guys good with this case?
Yeah, I think we're good.
I think so.
Okay. So Michael and I were looking at the doohickey for next week. So it's due the end of next week, I think, right?
Or the week after.
Is it due at the same time as the final? Or that weekend of before the final?
Let me look.
It'd be nice if we could have it done the end of next week.
It would be. And
because it's only 2 problems.
Yeah, and our problems I think are going to be a little bit tricky.
Well, we already found them. We found them. Yes. The one for this week is you ask the supervisor for documentation to support John's dismissal, but just laughs and says documentation is HR's job. You ask if the employee has ever received verbal or written warning, to which the supervisor responds, of course not. This is work at will state, and I can fire him whenever I want.
Okay.
He continues, I just don't like this guy. He dresses funny. So that's going to be this week's. It's going to be about dismissal. Okay?
Okay.
And then the second one, and we could also use this. It says after Christmas, we'll have to lay off everyone you hire. So we could use that as well. Or for the society portion, we could use the president and managers seem frustrated at their inability to meet customer orders, but the manufacturing workers are completely unaware of the opportunity. So it's a lack of communication, which would be a societal issue. And it says you ask a coworker about communication between management and the factory workers, and the coworker laughs as he walks away saying something like, factory workers just don't understand anything. So I'm hoping that's going to fit in with the society at work for next week.
Yeah.
But those are the 3 options that I found. I'm going to go ahead and put them on the doohickey so that we can look at them. And then if we want to change them, we can.
Perfect.
And I don't know what the key would be. I don't know which of the key issues you want to do because we haven't really looked at society at work yet.
Yeah. Well, that's easy when we start writing. Which one's going to make more sense.
Okay, but for sure we can talk about the work at will. The statement about I just don't like this guy. He dresses funny. Maybe to address how you can't just fire people because of looks.
Yeah.
Or dress.
Yeah. Perfect.
Unless there's a dress code, which it doesn't really say, but so maybe we could come up with some ideas about the work at will and dismissal.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Does that sound okay? Michael, you good?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Okay. I think we're good this week then. And then Michael, you're going to be in charge next week so you can get your last discussion in?
Yep, hopefully we're all here next week. So
yes, next Tuesday at 8.
Perfect. And that's the last one.
7 for you guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you later.
Bye.
Have a good week. Bye.